to get my whole hand in there. Do it again. It's good news. These chairs look easy, but not so much. Hello. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to start, if that's okay, Lanham. This is a official signing of a memorandum. We don't do this as often as you might imagine, celebrating that we've got an incredible economic opportunity that chooses us. I can tell you, I can count them on, just my thumb, on my one hand. The number of times people come in to me and say, gosh, I'd like to spend hundreds of millions, if not $1 billion or plus of my company's money in your lovely state. And I don't mean that as a negative. It's just typically we start building the infrastructure, and then we build the ideas, and then we think about how many employees that we can have, and then we look at what the state's investments can be in addition to the basic infrastructure. This is a bit different, and we've done one of these before, but not as big. So we are very excited. And so I'm here to welcome, I'll kind of go back to the beginning, I'm here to welcome Borderplex Digital. Now, what we're announcing today is a formalized partnership between Borderplex Digital and the state of New Mexico, which is why we've got cabinet secretaries and distinguished legislators here. Because we're going to invest in having all of the above. We're going to keep building meaningful infrastructure, including water. So we've got state-of-the-art individuals and the New Mexico State University involved in desalination. We know there's a real appetite, and thank you, to really think about our brackish water supplies and preserving our freshwater supplies. So we're going to start at business scale levels for brackish water, using the best technology and innovation the world has to offer for this new partnership. 2, we're going to do advanced manufacturing, and to put that in perspective, we are such a small state with such a small footprint that we're leading the nation. We're number 1 per capita in intelligent manufacturing and in wage growth related, because if you do one, it's a huge, you doubled the number that you had from before. This investment is large enough to scale outside of a per capita evaluation, that we're talking about large-scale manufacturing in a number of ways, advanced, intelligent, which really changes the landscape of what's going on at Santa Teresa. 3rd, like all states, we are clear that with the AI movement, which is here, and the amount of electricity that New Mexico both wants to produce, we want greener electricity, we want more of those electrons getting right onto the grid, we want more grid modernization, and as you know, New Mexico leads the country in transmission. So all of these things put together creates opportunities for an AI data center that some states might not see as opportunities, but if you do it right, like we always do, and you do it in the way that this company and that Mr. Napier is interested in doing it, it means that we meet all of our priorities in meaningful ways, all at once, in a growing economic area of the state. And so I'm really excited about this. And what I'd like to do, and it's not sort of the run of show, so if you will forgive me, I'm going to do these quick things. 1, I'd like to invite you to introduce yourself to more than the room in terms of all the New Mexicans who are going to be excited about this work and these jobs. Number 2, if it's all right with the legislators who have to get downstairs, I'm going to ask Secretary Black to give just people a sense about what kind of income these companies, business partnerships bring to small communities, because we don't talk about that enough. And then 3, I can't do any of this work. I can sign an MOU, but we can't create the kind of friendly, productive environment, including strategic water, all the appropriations for economic development in House Bill 2, all the environmental standards, all the stuff, unless you have the legislature squarely in your corner for these projects. And so I'd love it if you all would say a word or two. I'm skipping over you two cabinet secretaries, I'm so sorry. And then we're gonna sign this deal before you can get away.
Sounds great.
Okay, does that sound
Two
good?
thumbs.
Two thumbs
Yeah,
up.
we got this.
All right.
Okay, so my background, I'm Landon Napier. I'm the chairman and founder of Boardplex Digital. The way to think about me is I'm an entrepreneur who lives at the intersection of software and infrastructure. You know, throughout my career, I've been super blessed. You know, I built a company, I've taken it public. I was an early pioneer in the frontier tech that was the cloud. You know, throughout my life, I've always, you know, lived by a little bit of a mission and purpose. That mission and purpose is, I think, business is about creating jobs and opportunity. For those of us that are blessed, you know, to live in this country and get to work on this type of infrastructure, we can have a huge impact. You know, I got drawn to the Borderplex in New Mexico specifically, based on my involvement with some families in El Paso and Santa Teresa. I tell you, I think that Borderplex region is a national gem. I mean, I think the border is an asset. I think we can invest in that border. I believe we're having an infrastructure moment, and I think New Mexico is going to lead the way. So I'm grateful for the governor, for your team, the support you've had for us in this. We couldn't have gotten here without you. You know, we have a number of partners in the state, from El Paso Electric to Orion to road pavers. It's a long list of people that are helping us. So we are thrilled to be on this journey with you and are grateful.
Well, I appreciate that very much. I'm very excited to have you. Secretary.
Thank you, Governor and Latham. One of the things that I think is really important when we talk about these sort of investments and the impacts they can have in local communities, and we've got a great example of that here in New Mexico in Los Lunas. In 2015, before the Meta data centers started building out, the GRT intake in Los Lunas for the year was $11 million. Last November, it was $5 million just for that month. If you take the baseline of 2015 and you look at the increased GRT that has flown into the state's coffers, directly to the state, it's $189 million new dollars just from Los Lunas. And then you look at what went into the village of Los Lunas. It was $140 million. Almost little over a third of $1 billion over the last 10 years of new GRT from a $10 million LEDA investment from economic development to help start that project. Now, Amazon moved there. Nextera built an amazing solar farm there to support that. But does any of that happen unless you have that first investment? And I think those are the types of things when we think about rural economic development that are transformative for a community. And you also see, Governor, over the last 10 years, about 20% population growth in Los Lunas, or in the village of Los Lunas, versus the rest of the state, which was 1 or 2%. So again, you're seeing jobs created, you're seeing prosperity created, and we're excited to be partnering with you on the Boardplex Digital project.
I mean, we're going to have to be careful, or Doña County is going to start to eclipse some of the other counties, and I'm seeing a big smile by the House Appropriations Chair, so I guess this is terrible news for you. But this is exactly what we want, right? The complaint that although Las Cruces gets included in that I-25 corridor, that we're seeing the benefits of these investments literally statewide. Senator Padilla, would you like to share a few words?
Certainly. Thank you, Governor, and thank you, Latham, and Mr. Secretary-Designate, and Mr. Chairman, and everybody that's making all of this happen. This is a really exciting time for New Mexico, and I want to give kudos to our Governor, who has been very proactive, has come forward with economic development initiatives that look at what's happening to us right now. This is fantastic. One of the major items two of the major items that we're considering, Governor, this session is site readiness. We want to make sure that when every time Latham gets off the airplane, we're ready to receive him. And that's what site readiness will do for us. So that's a key element. Second is the quantum revolution is going to be landing right in New Mexico. And so we have two very significant pieces of legislation. They're going to help with the quantum movement that's happening across the world, and it's going to start right here in New Mexico. So this is all very exciting stuff. Thank you.
You are welcome. I agree with you. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Latham. And it's great to see everybody here today. Great to see Alicia. We're in the House Bill 2 budget that we passed yesterday, Governor, I think building on a strong 6 years of partnership, really remarkable leaders. This has some of the most economic development support and diversification dollars we've ever seen in New Mexico. we're working to create well-paying careers in New Mexico, very high-tech, that take some of the challenges we have, particularly around water. And Governor, I want to thank you for all of the work around reducing pressure on our fresh water and expanding our use of non-traditional treated waters. In this case, a focus on brackish water, which is central to our community, because that's how we not only become a destination for billions in investment, thousands of new jobs, but it's how we safeguard the fact that we're the fourth most biodiverse state in the country. I think it's just this innovative work, and I think it's no surprise that it's happening in Doña Ana County, where we've seen a lot of work go in. But in fact, the investments we're making statewide are going to make this possible many different parts of New Mexico, particularly if we pass this budget and pass some of the legislation. So excited for this. Thank you very much, Governor.
Well, thank you. I'm excited too. Representative Lada.
Thank you, Governor. It's an honor to be here with everyone today, and everyone has made some excellent remarks regarding economic development, job creation. But one of the things that I would like to add to that is how this is going to help our students, and how the collaboration between industry and public education is going to bring our students to the forefront with CTE programs, with involving them more in the tech industry. I see this as a huge, huge benefit for Southern Doña Ana County, for my legislative district in particular, because the possibilities of our students and our young people being able to not only get the training and the experience that they need to do this type of work, Madam Governor, but also the potential to keep our young New Mexicans in the state is so critical. And I want to thank you for taking leadership with that, with public education, and what we're doing at our K-12 schools. And I think this is going to be the sky's the limit, Governor. And I want to thank you for that. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I'm going to invite legislators up all the time for a press conference, because I'd like them to say more often on camera that I'm the greatest. So you want to have one tomorrow, same time?
Oh, here's my pen, here are my bills.
But it should show the public that building one of the strongest economies in America is on the agenda. Two, that we are grateful and really love being solid, productive economic partners. Expect that from us. We are problem solvers and innovators. That is a long-standing tradition of New Mexicans. When it doesn't seem like it's possible to do either, we get them both done. And what we're going to do now is let's sign the MOU, so that I don't let you get very far without that signature. And as we're opening our books to do that, I just want to point out for questions, we do have our Deputy State Engineer, Tanya Trujillo, who is a water expert and one of the drafters of the 50-year water plan. Thank you so very much. The Secretary of Transportation, because we've got all this intermodal investment at Santa Teresa, Ricky Cerna, we've got the Secretary of the Environment, James Kenny, and we've got the Secretary of Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources. That's a mouthful, and we have Secretary Kennardine here. So, we've got a full team, all dedicated to these successful partnerships. And with that, I have a special pen. You have a special pen? It's not as good as mine.
I brought my lucky one.
Me too.
Yeah.
Here we go. Here we go. And did they give you a big, this way I don't screw it up. All right.
Yeah, I got to sign your sticker.
I have the longest situation in America. It's a good one.
And that's a good one. Yeah.
And do we trade? Is this what
You want to trade the whole thing or just the paper?
It's just the paper. You keep your own thing right there. Come on. All right. Man after my own.
Your signature is much better than.
I don't know. I like all the stuff you got going. Oh my God, no one in
Look
America
at that,
believes that.
left-handed.
No.
This is-
That's a pretty good one for a lefty.
This is how it goes.
Congratulations to both of them. All right, let's see what they got. And we get to watch these chairs. And just to, because we're Facebook streaming live, and we don't want New Mexicans or any other viewers to think that if legislators get up, that something's happened. They are on the floor, they are debating bills. Please do that. Please vote for more bills. Thank you very much for the work that you're doing. But sometimes that, I think, deserves a bit of explanation, that they may not be able to stay for the whole thing. So, fingers crossed. All right, Mike, are you going to manage the
Yes,
questions?
ma'am. Thank you, Governor.
All right.
Thank you, Lana. Lujan Grisham, help the term.
Yeah, hi, thank you for having us here. So with one of the end goals being to support international trade, we also see President Trump's tariffs on Mexico just about ready to take effect after this month-long pause. Any concerns that that'll hinder operations or goals of the Border Flex facility?
So I'll go first. I mean, I just spent several days in Washington DC, and we are certainly in, the National Governors Association has a resolution that, tariffs largely just mean that everyday Americans, everyday New Mexicans have to spend more. And it has a chilling effect on international trade. Mexico's our largest trading partner. This is not what we think is good for business or good for America. Where we end up long-term, I think that the president's going to meet many of these tariff commitments that he's stated he was going to do in the short term. Our goal is to create, as you heard, as many of the stability factors here, so that as soon as the door opens in a productive way again, we're ahead of the game. What will happen in other states, including around the Canadian border, is that they'll just stall. And this MOU is about our commitment to find as many strategies fairly, where we have fair skin in the game, and as many strategies as my newfound partner in terms of their skin in the game. So that's why the infrastructure and the brackish water and so many of those other pieces that aren't affected by that. In the short term, you start there and you build out as quickly as you can. I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, no, I'd love to add. I mean, our perspective is we're playing a long-term game. Our shareholder base are families in the southwestern U.S. I think we'll continue to trade with Mexico. And I think the magic moment, for New Mexico specifically, is I think New Mexico is in the right place at the right time. I mean, I think that border is an asset. I think trade will continue. We can build these infrastructure campuses where we combine power, water, fiber, and cooling, and set it up right so that we have data centers, advanced manufacturing, and logistics. I believe that, look, New Mexico hasn't seen its best day. U.S. hasn't seen its best day. We'll get through all this and grow.
But there's a lot of unknowns, to your point, and we'd love to be able to navigate you through all of them. Can't. But we feel really confident that these are the kinds of things that people see that New Mexico has long leaned in, even when the challenges can seem overwhelming. We succeed in spite of those things. I would prefer not to have these tariffs. I worry immediately about everyday prices for everyday New Mexicans. I just talked a couple days ago with national press about the changes in the budget where we would take $880 billion out of healthcare, Medicaid. That's a healthcare tariff. That means people on the private market will pay more. Your copays will go up. Your prescription drug costs go up. None of this is smart for America. So in New Mexico, largely on this side of the table, I take a little credit too, is we've done a lot of work to reduce healthcare costs and have some of the lowest premium costs on the private market in the country. So this partnership will look a lot like that. Leaning in, leading the way, creating better cost centers in as many ways as we can, and then being in much better shape than maybe other parts of the country as a result. But if you can write a letter to President Trump saying you don't like tariffs, that would be great.
Thank you.
Mike Easterly, how are you?
Thanks. I'm wondering if you have any projections. The press release says this investment will create 1,000 jobs. What are the projections for when the hiring will begin? And I assume that's going to ramp up over time? Is that correct?
Yes, yes, and yes. And I'm going to ask Latham to talk
Yeah,
about
so
the
here's-
job growth trajectory.
Yeah, so First of all, appreciate the question. Yeah, so this is a development that will take a while, but we're getting after it fast. So phase one, we'll be breaking ground this year in Santa Teresa. And when we look at that Santa Teresa market, all the right ingredients are there to get going. All right, the partnership we've had with El Paso Electric has really been helpful. The resources are there, so we will break ground, this year. Then you'll start to see it ramp up over time. And the timing will ultimately be tuned based on infrastructure availability. So we've got a lot of work to do ahead of us, and we want to align all those things from, the market demand with customers to the supply and infrastructure availability. But we're going to get after it pretty quick. I mean, we're planning for big stuff here.
May I follow up?
Yeah.
Just one question. I'm curious about the impact you expect this to have on the housing market in Doña County, which I understand is already tight.
Yeah, so we've looked at that a bit. I wouldn't call myself a deep housing expert. I can tell you our mission and purpose on it, though, is, we believe with economic growth, housing opportunities will expand. And so there's a little bit of a virtuous cycle that starts to happen. With growth, opportunity arises. With opportunity, there's more capital to invest in the community. With that capital, I think housing can be developed. So we've had conversations with, developers in the area already about affordable housing and how to make that work. We're going to continue to do it. I mean, I think this is one of those projects that we can absolutely align our values and opportunity so that we can do it the right way and put some infrastructure and businesses in place that'll be a multi-decade driver of growth.
And
And
actually,
go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam
Talk
Governor.
about housing investment?
Absolutely. Great question. The city of Las Cruces just passed one of the most building-friendly zoning codes in the entire
That's where I was
state.
going.
Following, I think, the governor and the legislature's call to say, make it easier to build, and we're going to meet you there and support in any way that we can. Our budget does that. The new housing director, Madam Governor, is doing a great job on your end. I think the housing office that you proposed, this is the right year for that. And so our bill, the House Bill 2, had $110 million focused on housing, with $10 million of that focused on Doña County. What Latham said rings really true. More investment is going to bring more building, and the communities, I think, are stepping up to make it easier to build smart, to build sustainably, but to do it quickly. And I'm very proud that with your leadership, Governor, and a lot of legislative leadership, we're meeting that moment and supporting it as well.
Housing?
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, so again, governor's leadership to pull many members of the legislature together over the past 12 months to develop a solid housing strategy. We've come forward with legislation to create an Office of Housing Planning and Production. So it's got to have both. And then everything that we heard from the chairman here is going to ideally clobber a lot of these things that hold communities back, developers back, or whatever. They're going to be solved by having an office that coordinates all of this from A to Z rather than piecemealing things together. And you should be able to go from one community to the next and be able to build a house and whatever it is that you're trying to do. And we know that affordable housing is extremely important, but equally as important is workforce housing for you, Latham.
And I just want to point out that we asked local communities, so this is great news for you. They have to do some of their own work. These costs in large part are driven by local government rules and regulations that are quite frankly very outdated. And Las Cruces rose to the challenge. Now, other communities I think will follow suit in Doña County. This should be very good, welcome news for you that we can actually then make good on making sure that there's real investments and movement in housing opportunities for a growing workforce in that community. So kudos to Doña County, kudos to Las Cruces. I say yes to everything the legislators said. They're spot on and they're doing great work here.
Morgan Lee, Associated Press.
Thanks for this opportunity. My understanding of the press release is going to be catering to like data-intensive tenants, and there's a lot of concern right now about power consumption, water consumption, environmental concerns with AI and data centers. And from my understanding here, there's some incentives in terms of self-generation of power, desalinating water. Can you explain how that would work? Would it generate its own power?
Yeah, sure.
It's natural gas and nuclear options.
Yeah, sure. So here's how we think about this intersection of infrastructure and technology. first thing I tell you is, like, our perspective is we are people that believe in the word and. Okay, so what I mean by that is we can go fast and have high quality. You know, we can scale things and do it responsibly. So I think we've had amazing innovation just from an engineering and tech point of view in the country to enable these, you know, outcomes in a way we haven't had historically. So when we think about a campus, you know, it's about combining these fundamental infrastructure elements, you know, power, water, fiber, and cooling. Today, those systems operate independently. They don't talk to each other. When we have them talk to each other, there are efficiency gains to be had, right? With those efficiency gains, you know, we kind of unlock, you know, some magic pixie dust, is what I call it. Like, the efficiency gains make other things possible that just haven't been possible historically. So when we think about power generation itself, we take a portfolio approach. Everything we're going to do is going to be compliant with New Mexico's ETA. All right, so when we look at a portfolio, it's okay, how do we do this as effectively and efficiently as possible? When we look at things like water, you know, I mean, water's life. Okay, so when we look at the water resources in the semi-arid area, you know, that has to be designed appropriately.
It's only semi-arid?
Well, I'm an optimist. I'm an optimist, you know? Okay, and the amazing thing about, you know,
Question board.
I like that, you know, details. So I think that with respect to water specifically, there have been pretty darn good advancements in air-cooled systems. So specifically with the data center, if we look at the water requirements in the data center today versus a decade ago, those requirements have dropped 80–90% with respect to water usage. So my perspective is we have a snapshot today of what we can do with the tech to manage these constraints and get it to an effective outcome. We're playing a long game, as we talked about earlier. It's going to be better 5 years from now. It'll be better 10 years from now. So look, people are special. You know, when we met with the hydrologists at New Mexico State, there's incredible insight about what's going on in that basin, in that aquifer. I just think, you know, collectively, we've got to target our investments. We've got to push for innovation. We'll make this campus really something special. And the fact that we get to do it right on the border with #1 trading partner, you know, that's just icing on the cake.
And you know something else that look, everything we do should be done in a way where we have pretty high expectations about breaking the models that could create really challenging, more difficult scenarios for a state like New Mexico that is in the process of aridification because of climate change, that we want to support a strong ag economic community, and that's tricky. We want planned productive growth. We need more people in New Mexico, but that has to be done recognizing many of these challenges. Either because states have the luxury, so much water they don't care, or they don't think about what they want to be known for in the terms of the kind of economic development. So one, I want it to be the right kinds of economic development in every sector. And two, even if I, as the governor, said, up 1,000 jobs, come on over, whoever you are. They are, I don't know if you've met them, they're difficult, all right, all y'all, as combined, it's the worst.
I am not.
You're difficult too, all of them. That is what you want, and I use that word in an informal, teasing fashion. We have an accountability component between the two of us that we take really seriously. I want the ETA to be met or exceeded. There are some areas where we're doing really well, some areas that are going to need a little help. And I want my economic sector to be really clear that we intend for everyone to meet those standards, which means we have jobs tied to that innovation. And you seem to me to be just the kind of innovator and person who wants to be at that top 1% of folks in these entities. So these are all good questions, which we're making them answer, and they are. And that's why you have all this group around the table, because everyone will be at the table. We're going to make sure we do it right.
Governor, can I add to that? So Maureen, thank you for that question. You know, when I met with Lanham and we sat down and we started talking about the energy, the air quality, the water issues, it was an and what else could we do? What else could we do? What ideas do you have? Here's what we're bringing to the table. And I would just highlight that when we talked about the ETA and thinking about what could we do if we needed to sequester carbon, and you know, the idea of making carbon a solid and putting it in road base, right? So we have our transportation secretary here. So the ideas and the innovation that are spurring out of this, and when we talk about it, we're talking about a campus, right? And I think that has a certain implication that you don't hear in other states where they're talking about data centers, a sort of big box in a community that is just there with a gate around it. Lanham is talking about building an ecosystem, a campus, where water that they're conserving is water for the community. And I think it'd be somewhat irresponsible of us to have an ETA without the good work we're doing that the governor announced in Dubai to focus on a strategic water supply. So as we decrease the carbon intensity of our energy, we have to increase our reliance on non-freshwater sources for things like data centers. But they're also doing air-cooled data centers or campuses. And I think what I've gotten as the environment secretary who talks to a lot of people, works very much with the economic development department, is that you see people who want to race to the top as opposed to just sort of sit at the bottom. And I think what Lanham is bringing to New Mexico is going to accelerate everything to the top for us in the conservation as well as the economic development space. And so we're very excited about having Lanham as part of New Mexico.
Let's go to Leah Martin, Albuquerque Business First.
Hi, I have a question for Mr. Napier. How does the company plan to, how is the company examining workforce availability? And how are the local communities either poised or will be prepared to address those workforce needs?
Yeah, okay. First of all, thanks for the question. So, the mission and purposes here is to basically create opportunity for New Mexicans. So when we think about how we're going to develop this over time, workforce is obviously input number one. I'm a technologist. I think the best technologies in the world is called a human being. Human beings can do amazing things. And so when we've done
Can you call Elon Musk?
Well, he's a pretty amazing human being in some ways. He can do a lot of
I know
stuff.
that he feels the same way about other human beings. I'm just saying, I'm not sure yet. I'm evaluating.
So what we've done is we've done the studies to know that, look, there are enough super talented New Mexicans to get all this going. Then the next part is about how we develop more. So I think municipalities and can get confused about, wanting to lure things in and hire people from across the country. In my perspective, the way to achieve greatness is to develop what we have, and we get a compounding effect. So we've already spent time with, Doña Ana Community College, talking about their programs and doing internships. We've spent time with New Mexico State University, talking about compiling an AI curriculum. So I actually think it's here. We just got to go do it. Right? We just have to put in the little extra effort. And generally speaking, like most of the time in my life, discretionary effort is what creates advantage and outcome. So we're putting the discretionary effort here.
And I think given its proximity to other cities like El Paso is also an opportunity. Certainly, look, we want New Mexicans to have as many choices for jobs today and in the future as possible. We want New Mexicans to think about their own families building that workforce, and we've given all these opportunities with Opportunity Scholarship. But also, we know that to be competitive means that we are drawing in, and we already do. We have lots of commuters from El Paso into a number of job sectors, including healthcare, inside Doña Ana County. I would expect that this will draw a fair number as well. And so it's another reason Santa Teresa is such a unique opportunity. And without regard to what's happening globally and tariffs and where the priorities of this federal government are or aren't, we also are going to continue to have a robust relationship with our friends in Mexico who are also interested in innovation, energy, brackish water, and they have to do their own data center work. So these partnerships, to the degree that we can do them, we will be exploring all of the above. And so again, the location is powerful, and here this location is incredible.
Take one more from Morgan Lee, and then we'll let these lawmakers get back to work.
Oh, look at you. Wow, that was neat.
Just a quick question. There was some comments about education and opportunities, but it sounds like some of this project may stand on industrial revenue bonds. And I wonder if anybody here is worried about foregone public revenue through that finance arrangement. I'm not saying it's specific to this, but there's been instances where there's revenue that doesn't go towards school districts when this kind of arrangement is in place.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you point out that there can be unintended consequences that we need to be aware of. And I'm a big proponent, I don't know whether everybody is, about every financial tool, including IRBs, and tax incremental districts and opportunity zones and a number of things that allow us to cobble together investments that make or break these kinds of developments. I mean, one thing that New Mexico has that most states where you do lose potential local taxes for schools, and that's not our goal here, is they don't have another set of resources. This is a state that socked money away in the public school building authority, in any number of other permanent funds. We have a robust capital program that doesn't get to the operating cost, but the permanent funds do, which will be at $100 billion in less than 10 years. Now, I am not a proponent of opening up any of these funds for any more. All right, we are not, and that's a debate in the legislature. It will, I think, always be a debate about when you do and when you don't. The opportunities here to course correct, if you have a situation, are pretty amazing, and that is exactly why we have them. Not to take them lightly, not to over-issue any of our bonding capacity or lending capacity, not to over-invest in LIDA or anything else, but to do it responsibly and correctly. And if there's an unintended consequences, schools and their funding is also a top priority of the state, which is why it's got the third largest educational endowment in the world. And so we don't take any of that lightly, but it's a powerful question. And for your knowledge and information, we look at those things that are cautious but effective in the way in which we make these investments. And I'm not always in control of the local IRB either. So I want to make sure that the viewers and folks know those are more often than not local decisions that governors do not make.
And I would add to that, where you've got an IRB situation where you're working off of a greenfield that nothing is there, your tax rate is very, very low. And so, giving up nothing of nothing is still nothing. What we do with those economic incentives is create a competitive playing field where we can get those investments. And that's why I wanted to, and I think the governor asked us to share that information regarding what happens in Los Lunas.
Yeah.
Think about the impact of an extra $140 million GRT to that community over those, since 2016. And not to mention what that comes back to the state. And then that's before you ever put a multiplier on what that impact is into the community. So, as the governor said, we always analyze those investments. We have clawback options in those sort of investments, whether it's LIDA or other things, so that if we're holding folks accountable to meet their goals and what they've contracted with the state to do. But we are bullish on New Mexico and making sure that we're creating a pathway to prosperity for our families.
And we've been really successful so far, so I'd like to point that out.
Thank you.
All right, congratulations to us all.